Hey, this is going to be comprehensive and concise. We're going to go through every single player on the 49ers 90-man roster, and we're going to project how they fit into the 53-man equation or the 16-man practice squad equation or an injury list equation. So as we go through all of this, you're going to hear how every single player on the 49ers roster is doing. I know that there's a ton of information in a bunch of different places online. Figured you might want it all in one place. So this is a video that you should watch if you're interested in just information hitting you like water coming out of a fire hose. This is up on the San Francisco Standard right now. The link is in the description. I wrote my 53-man roster projection. I highly recommend that you have this in written form as well, because it's going to be a lot easier to visualize this. And then, of course, you also have the written record, so you can go back and look at this after the Raiders game, the Raiders joint practice, which is coming tomorrow in Las Vegas. In fact, I'm going to head to the airport after this show so I could get into the desert and report for you on how the 49ers and the Raiders look out on that practice field in Henderson. But this is very, very good to refer back to as we go position by position. Of course, I base so much of my work on this because this right here is the great visualizer of what the 49ers roster looks like. This is the spreadsheet. This is a look at the 53-man projection, everything on the left side of the middle dividing line, and then the 90-man totality of the roster. Players who don't make the 53-man projection at the very moment are only on the right side. They don't move over to the left side. There has been a ton of movement over the past few days. And by ton, like 3 different positions, I've sensed some real movement based on what I saw in the preseason game. And of course, what we are looking at practice every day at the 49ers facility. I talked about some of the movement yesterday along the offensive line, and that is exactly where we can start. My 53-man projection for the 49ers offensive line is right here. Trent Williams, left tackle, looking as good as he has with the 49ers. I think he's looking a little lighter this year. I think that Trent has understood that the ankle issues he had been dealing with on essentially an annual basis were something that he had to address. And at over 300 pounds, people will tell you that the best way to stay healthy is to just have less weight being put on joints, being put on, different parts of the body that have been seeing injuries, and ankle has been Trent Williams' biggest problem. I think he's looking spry. I think he's been locked into some good battles with Nick Bosa whenever both of them have been practicing. And above everything else, Trent Williams has been at practice for the 49ers this month. Last year, he was away from the facility up until he signed his contract. So, he told me, I think it was after the season opener, the Monday Night Football game against the Jets. I asked Trent how to go out there, and he said, "Man, my tongue was cramping." Yeah, he just wasn't in shape at the start of the season for obvious reasons, because he wasn't in training camp for the prior 5-6 weeks. I don't think that's going to be an issue this time around. I think that Trent is in great shape. He wants to play 3 more seasons. He wants to play until he's 40. He's obviously already a first ballot Hall of Famer, and now he's going to be trying to add that Super Bowl trophy to his resume. So he seems motivated. He seems refreshed, and he is entrenched on the 53-man roster at that left tackle position. Next to him, Ben Barch has looked good when he's been healthy, but yesterday Ben left practice, and Connor Colby, the rookie, replaced him. That's been some of the big movement on this depth chart. Connor Colby has usurped, at least for now, Nick Zakelj as the 49ers' primary backup at left guard. So that's why I don't have Zakelj in on this 53-man roster projection. I have the 49ers carrying 8 offensive linemen. We don't know exactly what's wrong with Barch. We're going to get a chance to talk to Kyle Shanahan tomorrow, but Barch is the 49ers' preferred option at left guard after how well he played last season. All I'll say for Ben Barch is it's very important that he show that he can stay healthy, because last year his season was ended with a high ankle sprain. his tenure in Jacksonville was marred by the dislocated knee. The 49ers ended up poaching him off of Jacksonville's practice squad, but Bart started quite a few games for Jacksonville before that injury. So far in his NFL career, this is a converted tight end, somebody who is very athletic, but you don't see a lot of tight ends convert into guards. You see it happen more often at the tackle position. So it took a lot of weight gain for Ben Bartch to get to where he is as an NFL offensive lineman. And I think that we need to see evidence that this guy can stay available for a long stretch of time playing at a guard weight at the NFL level. But boy, can he be a player, because last year over his 1.5 games or so, I mean, the tape was impressive. It was Buffalo and then it was Chicago, and he got hurt during the game against the Chicago Bears. Jake Brendel going to be the 49ers center. He hadn't been dealing with knee tendonitis this offseason. That's big for the 49ers and for Jake Brendel. Remember, last training camp, he was missing practice fairly frequently because of the knee tendonitis, and I think that compromised his play in 2025. Dominic Pooney scored a touchdown yesterday. Yes, it wasn't designed, but he scored a touchdown yesterday, so he's having a good camp. Dominic Pooney caught a pass from Brock Purdy that had deflected off of Kyle Juszczyk, and Pooney's an athletic guy in his own right, and he sprinted into the end zone. Key for Dominic Pooney this year is just adjusting. I guess I could say counter adjust, because defenses adjusted to him. Now he's got to counter adjust to those linemen, and I think that given the full runway of an offseason, that's going to be a good thing for Dominic Pooney. I think he's going to be able to do that. He opened the season so hot last year. First 3 quarters of the year, he's one of the better guards in football. Then he hit a little bit of that wall down the stretch. So Dominic is going to be looking at trying to reverse that here over the course of 2025. And Colton McKivitz looking really strong. Last night I talked about the battles that he's had with Nick Bosa. Maybe my favorite part of camp so far was when McKivitz and Bosa went one-on-one twice. Bosa won once, McKivitz won the second one, and then Bosa was like, no, we got to go again. We got to break the tie. Ironically, they tied on the third rep, so they didn't break the tie. But both of those guys are, I think, locked into their best competitive selves. McKivitz has recently said that he's going to be a Pro Bowler this year. And while many people might scoff at that, the amount of improvement that he showed between 2023 and 2024 was massive. He was a second percentile pass blocker at tackle in terms of pass blocking efficiency in 2023, which means that he was better than only 2% of tackles in pass block efficiency score in 2023. 98% of tackles scored higher than him. That score improved to the 56th percentile in 2024. So he went from the second to the 56th percentile. That is a jump of 54 percentile points. Means that he's also now better than the majority of tackles in the NFL when it comes to pass protection. So any more improvement from Colton McKivitz puts him firmly up in the range of good tackles at a bargain for about $4 million per year for the 49ers. So obviously he makes the roster. So many of you probably wondering about the 2 rookies, Connor Colby and Drew Moss. They were the highest graded 49ers offensive players from the preseason opener. They are now at practice firmly taking second team reps at left guard and right guard. Yesterday when Bartch went down, Colby filled in for him. Huge for San Francisco. So I think both of them make it. I think that Drew Moss may even have some center adaptability for the 49ers in the future. If that's the case, he could be one of Jake Brendel's backups at center, but I don't think that he'd be ready right away. For this to work, for this projection to work without Nick Zakelj on the 53-man roster, the 49ers would have to get Zakelj through to the practice squad, or they would have to get Matt Hennessy through to the practice squad so they would have a backup center. You've got a 53-man roster and a 16-man practice squad. Can the 49ers get either of these 2 guys through to the practice squad? I think the chances are solid in the favor of yes, which means that I think this is your group of 8 with Spencer Burford as the 49ers backup left tackle. If you needed a backup for Colton McKivitz, well, you also need to carry somebody like Austin Pleasance on the practice squad, if that is indeed possible. But Andre Dillard and Isaiah Prince, they could both make their moves here over the course of the next couple weeks. Dillard just came off the PUP list, so he just now has had a chance to to get back into practice. He's still taking reps with the threes. We'll see if Dillard can graduate up to that second unit and truly challenge Spencer Burford. Somebody like Isaiah Prince, veteran tackle, was a backup for the Bengals who started in their Super Bowl run in 2021. It's going to be really interesting this weekend, or tomorrow actually, because Max Crosby, remember the Bengals beat the Raiders in the wild card game on that Super Bowl run? Isaiah Prince fared well against Max Crosby. But that was 4 years ago. I think Isaiah, it seems like he's on the lighter end now. Maybe that's good for his movement capability, but also can be a little troublesome against the bull rush. Hopefully he gets a one-on-one rep or two against Max Crosby at practice tomorrow so we can evaluate where he might be at relative to where he was at in that 2021 playoff run for the Bengals. So some options there at swing tackle for the 49ers, but they've typically carried 8 offensive linemen in the past. And I think that they're going to carry 8 this time, with the possibility of a flex to a 9th offensive lineman if they really feel that they need some more backup adaptability. For example, I think they only trust Spencer Burford at left tackle. I don't think they trust him at right tackle. That's why they're running the dual tackle situation. It could be that Andre Dillard surges and he's a swing tackle. He can play both on the left side and the right side, and that punches his ticket onto the roster. Drake Nugent, I think if Matt Hennessy doesn't make this team, either on the 53 or the practice squad, if you have neither Zakel nor Hennessy, maybe Nugent is a backup center for the practice squad. He's just a little short, right? When you look at the measurements for Drake Nugent, the reason that he wasn't drafted was because of the size, and that's why he's pigeonholed into a center position at the NFL. I think they really like the progress that he's made, but as I said yesterday in our show talking about the offensive line, they're just physical realities at some point in the NFL. You've got to be able to execute some of the reach blocks. You have to be able to take on some of these very, very big defensive linemen. More and more often we see edge rushers moving inside, taking advantage of the shorter guards and the shorter centers. And that's obviously something that a player has to be able to physically defend himself against when he's blocking up front. So I think that Nugent hit the ceiling, probably is going to be the practice squad again for him for San Francisco, which doesn't preclude him from playing. I mean, you tap into that practice. It's more of a taxi squad now. You tap into that for depth reasons. So 2 more weeks to go before the roster cut down. It is on August 26th, and we'll see how that all shakes out. All right, let's move on to the receiver position. Yeah, the position, it goes position by position as far as injuries. Offensive line relatively healthy. Barch, the one exception, we don't even know if that was serious yesterday when he left practice. Tight end relatively healthy, but then you get the receiver and running back, and there are a lot of injuries at both of these spots. Those of you just joining, by the way, the 53-man roster projection is out on the San Francisco Standard. If you subscribe to the Standard, then you're going to have the very best 49ers coverage there is. And I think you want the best video coverage and you want the best written coverage. So go ahead and check that out. It's either on my X page or it is on the description. I'm going to put it in the comments section as soon as we're done with this video. But we're moving to the receiver room for the 49ers as far as the 53-man projection goes. We're going to talk about how the 49ers are going to navigate what looks like a treacherous, tricky situation given the injuries, because right now it's hard to predict everything that's going to be true in 2 weeks at the receiver room. So Jordan Watkins probably won't be healthy for week 1, but he probably will be healthy before week 4 because they only expect him out for about a month, meaning you can't do an IR procedure with him because that would keep him out for the first 4 weeks of the season. That'd be the minimum timeout, but you want him back sooner. So Watkins is going to have to take up a roster spot even with his high ankle sprain. Jawan Jennings, I know that there's the calf. I know that there's the contract, but you still have to project that he's going to take a roster spot. Brandon Ayuk doesn't have to take a roster spot. He's on PUP right now. He can transition to the regular season PUP list because he's already on PUP. Won't take a roster spot. It's going to miss at least the first 4 weeks. So I put a little asterisk by Brandon Ayuk because that means he's not counting for a roster spot here. I have the counter down here. I know it's at 54, but I'll explain why in a second. Ayuk is not counting, though, and we're talking about, what, 5 or 6 receivers making the 53-man roster. Pearsall has looked awesome. I mean, Ricky looks like he's ready to blossom into a star, so he's definitely in that picture. Jacob Cowing, finally back at practice after straining his hamstring in practice number 1. Can't say that he looks awesome because we haven't seen enough of him yet, but I project him to make the 53-man roster after his good offseason. So there you have 4. Jennings, Watkins, Pearsall, and Cowing. Demarcus Robinson, he's currently in the appeals process of his suspension. That's what Kyle Shanahan told us the other day. We expect him to be suspended for maybe the first 3 games of the season, maybe the first 2 if somehow the appeal is able to mitigate the punishment there. But regardless, I think the expectation is that Demarcus Robinson is going to be on the suspended list for week 1, which means that he's not going to be counting against the 53-man roster. If that is the case, then both Robinson and Ayuk don't count, even though they're listed here at the top of the 49ers depth chart. These 4 guys do. 49ers have carried up to 7 receivers before. I would probably cap it at 6 this time. So who's number 5? Russell Gage for sure at this point. I mean, Russell Gage, he was leading the 49ers in catches at training camp. This is a veteran who's been there and done that at a high level in the NFL before, 750 plus receiving yards in 2 straight seasons for the Falcons. And I think that if you are missing receivers, this is a dependable player to be able to slot into the number 3 role for San Francisco. And then I think that Junior Bergen makes this team. I mean, don't act shocked based on what we've seen so far. Nice punt return. It's been forever since 2011, since Ted Ginn Jr., since the 49ers returned to punt for a touchdown in a game. Junior Bergen had 8 of those in college. He might give the 49ers their best shot to do that since 2011. And, you know, it wasn't a concern, but it was an asterisk with Junior Bergen was that when they drafted him, they figured, well, this guy, I mean, he'll make the team as a punt returner possibly, but is he going to give us anything at receiver? That was like the big question from the 49ers when they drafted him. And it was a Brant Boyer draft pick in that 7th round. Based on what we've seen in the preseason, and I would say mainly in training camp, Junior Bergen can run some routes. Junior Bergen can catch the football. Now, it's a different catching style. Sometimes he says, you kind of get used to catching with your body because of the punt returns, and you've got to make sure that you're changing to catching, plucking the ball out of there with your hands on receptions. But he's just a football player. I mean, the first day that we met Junior Bergen, he said that his goal was to make the Hall of Fame. You don't hear 7th round picks just go and proclaim that, but he's got this quiet confidence to him. I like a lot of what Junior Bergen is about. And I think that especially since they've got some extra room at that receiver position, not saying that the injury and the suspension is a good thing, but it does give the 49ers some more leeway, it seems, at receiver. As far as who you can take on the 53-man roster, because there is more room with the suspension list and the PUP list applying to Robinson and Ayuk respectively. So I think that Junior Bergen is going to make this team, and I think he's going to continue impressing over these next 2 preseason games. The guys who won't make it, but 49ers might invite one or a couple of them back onto the practice squad: Tariq Owens, Isaiah Hodgins, and Robbie Chosen. Isaiah, born in San Jose, went to high school at Berean Christian in Walnut Creek, Bay Area guy. Robbie Chosen might make this team, though. This is one that I'm debating about. He's been making some plays at practice, and Kyle Shanahan actually had a really interesting comment about Robbie Chosen the other day. He said that they offered him a practice squad spot last year. He said no, he'd rather go be on the 53 for the Dolphins. But Shanahan said that this year Chosen is in better shape, and very obviously the 49ers have more opportunities at the wide receiver position because of all the injuries. So there is a chance that Robbie Chosen, because of the injury situation early in the year, does make that 53. Maybe he makes it over Junior Bergen, or maybe they carry 7 receivers early on because of the Jordan Watkins injury situation. That would obviously cause them to have to make an adjustment elsewhere, but do be on the lookout for Robbie Chosen. All right, running back position for the 49ers. McCaffrey, obviously. Guerrero should be back in a couple weeks. That should not be an injury list coming off the shoulder. He'll be there. I think Patrick Taylor Jr. has raised the floor of his game, which makes him a good, solid depth piece, a veteran depth piece, good pass protector as well at running back for the 49ers. And then Jordan James, that shouldn't be an injury list situation as well. They expect him back in a couple of weeks from the broken finger. Juszczyk is the fullback. They've carried 5 in the past, including the fullback. You ask about Corey Kiner. You might ask about Jeff Wilson Jr. You might ask about Keyshawn Vaughn. I think that Kiner is an ideal practice squad guy. Wilson, if he shows them that he still has some juice, might be a good practice squad guy as well. The running back position for the 49ers, I mean, you talk about this team going through a lot of injuries. Running back seems to be especially beaten up. I think it's because they just go for speed and physicality, and that's a combination that could lead to some real bruises. So they're going to want to insulate the practice squad here with guys they can keep around. Now, if one more guy gets hurt and is unavailable for week 1, and you've got to put him on an injury list, so you've got an extra room at the running back position, all of a sudden that's when you're starting to talk about Corey Kiner potentially making the 49ers 53-man roster. But we're not quite at that spot yet. He runs hard. I mean, just zealous running. I wrote about that up on the San Francisco Standard. Was Shanahan loves his zealous running style, but they also still want to coach him up on a few of the intricacies. Don't want to give him some of the NFL pointers. And I predicted he'd be the 49ers leading preseason rusher. So far, so good on that prediction. 10 carries, 45 yards. And you could be sure that Corey Kiner is going to get a whole lot of time against the Raiders and then against the Los Angeles Chargers. It's a great opportunity actually right now for him to prove his durability, because the 49ers are shorthanded elsewhere and they're not going to want to either play or push Christian McCaffrey in these preseason games. I think they only take 2 quarterbacks, Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. I think that you've got to win that third quarterback role, and nobody's won it. Now, Curtis Rourke, he might make the 53 and then be, well, here's the thing. Curtis Rourke is currently on NFI, so I think that the easiest way to do this for Curtis Rourke is to keep him on NFI. So he might make the 53 later if he's activated from that NFI list. But he had the torn ACL. He played on it last year. I think they envision him as the QB3. They've already waived they've already, I almost said Carter Mordecai and Tanner Bradley. I mixed the 3 and the 4 together. They've already waived Tanner Mordecai twice. He's currently not on the team. Carter Bradley still is, but based on what we've seen so far in the play from Carter Bradley, he's not going to earn that third quarterback spot. Now, he can improve rapidly. He used to play for the Raiders, so maybe this is Carter Bradley revenge week, headed back to Las Vegas, but there's a lot of ground to make up here. And if they're not just going to hand this third quarterback role to a warm body who is on the roster, you're going to have to earn this third quarterback role, because if somebody's taking it up, then there's a spot that you're kicking somebody else off the roster elsewhere. There's a finite amount of room here on the 53-man roster. So I think that they're okay going with 2 until they find somebody who impresses them enough for 3. Maybe that's the 7th round pick, Curtis Rourke, once he's available to go at some point this season. They can move him off of NFI, and at that point, he would be the 49ers QB3. And you just hope that Purdy and Mac Jones, at least one of them, stays healthy. Knock on wood. I mean, Brock Purdy's playing so well right now that I think seeing a healthy season from him could lead to some big end of season awards. I mean, Brock Purdy is spinning the football. He was 14 of 17 at practice yesterday with 2 of the prettiest passes that I've ever seen him throw, in rhythm and just on the money to George Kittle. Just bullets. One, a 25-yard bullet over the middle of the field leading George Kittle. And the second one was just laser precision, go pattern. There was decent coverage from Jair Brown. It was a good picture. I think that I put the picture up yesterday. Actually, let me grab the picture right now. This will summarize how camp is going for Brock Purdy and for George Kittle. And the long story short is that camp for both of these guys is going very, very well. There you go. So, yesterday I described it in the instant reaction as Brock Purdy couldn't have run up to George Kittle and handed him the football in a better spot. And yes, I meant that, and I was correct in that description. Kittle was running full speed, and you could see Jair Brown is not far behind him. I mean, he's essentially blanketing him. So if that is a little bit underthrown, Jair Brown has a fairly easy pass breakup. So that has to be right on the money for George Kittle to catch it in stride and head to the end zone. And Kittle did that, yelled, screamed as he crossed the goal line into the end zone, and then he took the ball and he punted it toward the fans that you see there in the background. That was just one of the touchdowns George Kittle had yesterday. He even got to throw the ball up in there after he blocked for Christian McCaffrey on a touchdown. And, I failed to mention this. I'm sorry. I know that my instant reactions after practice are 20 minutes long and comprehensive, and I go through everything. I forgot to mention that Brock Purdy ended practice yesterday with a designed run for a touchdown. And that's how it ended. Then they blew the horns and practice was over. Anyway, practice is going very, very well. Camp is going very, very well for Purdy and for Kittle. Speaking of Kittle, we can look at the tight end position on this 49ers depth chart. And you've got Farrell, obviously, tight end 2. I think Dwelly's going to be 3. And then the question is, who wins 4? I think it's a battle between Braden Willis and Jake Tonjes. Willis had the nice block on Nick Bonito for the Patrick Taylor Jr. touchdown. That was against the Broncos. And I think he's done some good things receiving. And Jake Tonjes has probably done a little bit more in the receiving game for the 49ers over the course of this training camp. So that's the entire offense, 53-man projection. We're going, again, through every 49ers player, how they project on this 53-man roster. If they carry only 3 tight ends, the 49ers will definitely carry a 4th on the practice squad. Last year, I believe there was some Willis, right, on the practice squad. I think it was a yo-yo for Willis. I think that he might have been on both the 53 and the practice squad. And Mason Pline, who's no longer with the team, he's now with the Saints, was on the practice squad throughout the season. All right, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. This is fun. I love going through all this. This is one of the position groups that has a lot of injuries, as you could see by the pink shading, the D-line. So this is going to get complicated, and we're not exactly sure where this is going to stand on August 26th when the cutdown happens, but we do know that Nick Bosa is making the team. We do know that Kalia Davis is playing his best football now that he's had a long, healthy stretch. I think Kalia is in line to start. In fact, Chris Kasarik yesterday talked about Kalia Davis. We had some time with Chris, and it just really, really firmly illustrated why Kalia is in the great position that he is by talking about his skill set and his strength. Remember, I talked about Kalia just swiping away Luke Wattenberg, who's a starting interior offensive lineman for the Denver Broncos. Well, Chris Kasarik talks about some of that skill set in the 49ers defensive tackle here.
With the young guys, they're always come in really eager to learn, eager to progress. And then, you see them through the first few days and they're really eager. And then to watch them about day 10 and out on full speed.
I have the wrong clip there. Let me get the correct Kalia Davis. But that was the entire Chris Kasarik interview. We'll cut that up and we'll splice that. But Mike sent me a better, shorter clip of Chris Kasarik with Kalia Davis. Mike, if you can, was it yesterday? Mike, if you have that, can you send that to me one more time? I think that I didn't save it properly, and I ended up playing the whole Chris Kasarik piece. I really, really loved what he said about Kalia yesterday, because he went into some of the technicalities of where Kalia has shown his standout strength. And we already knew that the guy could run, could get to an edge, brought some of the speed and explosiveness that you're not used to seeing out of the defensive tackle position. the fact that he showed the muscle and the strength and some of the anchor that, you know, you don't expect to see out of somebody who has a background as an inside linebacker. That to me really, really stood out. And I'm kicking myself because I thought I had this yesterday. Mike might be at work or something right now. So we're waiting to see what Mike says. Hopefully Mike hears me and is able to get us some of this Kalia Davis video, because I played it, or Chris Kasarik video on Kalia Davis, because I played it yesterday and I thought it was one of Chris Kasarik's better clips. Oh, well, we'll wait a bit. I'll text Mike and we'll get back to it because we got to get back to the roster. And we'll get that roster up right now. So I think that Kalia, especially with Kevin Givens, he's got the asterisk here. He's not going to be taking up a roster spot for the 49ers. They're going to have to find probably an IR stash for Kevin Givens. What you do there is he's probably going to make the 53. Then he's going to be immediately placed on IR, and then you'll re-sign a player with whom you've got a little backroom agreement to come back onto the 53-man roster. So that way Kevin Givens is eligible to come back after 4 games, but he's not going to, for all intents and purposes, he's not going to take up a 53-man roster spot. And he's also not going to take up a starting spot. Now, I think that Kalia Davis, based on what we saw in the preseason opener, is in position to start for the 49ers. I think that he's put together a long, healthy stretch. I think that he's explosive. I think that he's strong. I mean, he backed down Nick Gargiulo, the second team guard for a sack later on, and Bradley Anayi was in on that play too. But when he tossed away Wattenberg for the pressure on that initial Denver drive, I'm like, okay, well, I see what Kalia is doing here. And I see him making a strong case to start for the 49ers, because you're not going to see many rookies starting immediately on the defensive line. I think the goal is to ultimately have CJ West, and I need to shade CJ back in the green color for a rookie, and Alfred Collins, shade him in the green color for a rookie. Both of them ultimately starting at 2 of the defensive tackle positions, but it's unrealistic to expect too many rookies to start immediately. Michael Williams will. West, I would say he's second string kind of player right now. Alfred Collins is still vacillating between the 2s and the 3s. He's got the most developmental runway to go through. Maybe by the end of the season, you see both of these guys mixing in with the 1s, but I think it's more likely to see both CJ and Alfred as part of the larger 8-man rotation, but not necessarily as starters for the 49ers. Now, what's going to be interesting is what they do here at the defensive tackle position. I said that there might be a trade or two. If there are 2 players who are candidates to be traded, like maybe possibilities to be traded at the NFL roster cutdown, they're both on the defensive side of the ball, and it's Jordan Elliott and it's Jair Brown. And I'll explain why on Elliott here. The 49ers renovated their defensive line, or they've been renovating their defensive line over the course of this offseason, to the point where defensive tackles from essentially the old pre-Robert Saleh regime have been jettisoned and replaced on the roster with rookies. So Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave out, 2 pass rushers gone, 2 guys who are more geared toward run stopping, and CJ West and Alfred Collins in. Now, you need some developmental time, obviously, for the rookies, but might the same pattern continue? Because one of the holdovers from actually the only holdover from the pre-Saleh era, because Kevin Givens dates back to Robert Saleh 1.0. I guess Evan Anderson too, but Anderson's a young player. The only veteran holdover from the pre-Saleh era is Jordan Elliott. Jordan Elliott's not a great pass rusher. His forte is run stopping, but he was a run stopper on a team that ranked number 29 in run defense last year. Could that be somebody with some late round pick value in case another team needs to plug in a veteran defensive tackle? And the reason that I say that is because the 49ers have a rookie named Sebastian Valdez, who they've nicknamed the Hulk, who might be demanding a roster spot. I don't think that Trevis Gibson is going to make the 53, but I couldn't fit him anywhere on this side at defensive end. So for now, Trevis Gibson is listed here, but I don't count him when you count how many defensive linemen make this 53-man roster. We're going Bosa, Kalia Davis, Michael Williams is 3. Yetur Gross-Matos, who should be back next week, is 4. West is 5. Evan Anderson is 6. Huff is 7. Alfred Collins is 8. And Sam Okawanu is 9. Kevin Givens obviously doesn't count either. They have taken 9 or 10 defensive linemen in the past. If they only have room to take 9, given the rest of the roster, and they want to take Sebastian Valdez, then somebody like Jordan Elliott would have to go, or somebody would have to go. And I'm looking at potential trade candidates. That's one that I'm circling as a possibility because there might be some value there. And then, of course, this obviously would be a big vote of confidence in some of the rookies. I think that the Kevin Givens injury is damaging for the prospects of such a maneuver because Kevin would have started, would have been the one giving the 49ers some extra leeway for those rookies. And then somebody like Jordan Elliott would have been more expendable at the start of the year. And I'm not sure if the entire equation has changed because Givens is gone. But I do know that there might be a numbers crunch here because Sebastian Valdez might be forcing his way onto this roster. Robert Beal Jr., bubble player for sure. Jonathan Garvin, Jalen Allen, Michael Dwumfor, Bruce Hector, Bradley Anayi. Out of those guys, I've seen some intriguing stuff from the 2 edge rushers. Jalen Allen is more of a Bryce Huff type. He's lighter. He's even lighter than Bryce Huff, though. And Bradley Anayi is definitely the bigger 260, 270-pound, more of a Bosa-type body at defensive end. Anayi led the UFL in pressure rate during the last season, and Jalen Allen is fast. Allen is fast, and he's light. So it is either a massive play for Jalen Allen where he blows by whoever on one-on-ones, or he just gets completely swallowed up. But that's okay because the position he's playing, that he's supposed to be playing a high ceiling, low floor edge rusher spot where he plays only on obvious passing situations. So if the 49ers like what they've seen from him, and he was teammates with Bryce Huff at Memphis in college, if they like what they see from Jalen Allen, then they can put him on the practice squad. And I think somebody like Bradley Anayi might be worthy of very, very similar development for the 49ers. Now, you got to be careful here when you're crafting this roster because guys like Anayi, who really flashed in the first preseason game, if he does that again over the next 2 weeks, he could get poached. He could get scooped up by somebody else. And then, you have to reconvene in 2 weeks and see where your health situation's at because right now it's a little rough along the defensive line. Michael, Yetur should both be back next week. Sam Okawanu should be back soon. Jordan Elliott, that's also minor. He should be back soon for the 49ers. So things should get better, but guys can also get hurt between now and then. And if you don't know exactly what the situation is going to look like in those 2 weeks, then you always have to keep in mind that it is possible that one of these guys is a surprise qualifier for the 53-man roster. All right, we're going through every single 49ers player on the 90, like every guy, and how they might fit into a 53-man roster equation. We've got 2 position groups left. Warner, Winters. Winters is essentially one linebacker too. I mean, they're not going to make an announcement. Don't expect that, but use your brain. D. Winters is linebacker 2. Who's linebacker 3? Right now it's Luke Gifford, and I thought he played really well, by the way, on Saturday. The veteran was with the Tennessee Titans. I think Brant Boyer and Colt Anderson, who's the assistant special teams coach, are really going to want Luke as part of that unit. So he's linebacker 3. Colt Anderson actually coached him in Tennessee on the special teams unit. Tatum Bethune, I thought, had a really good game on Saturday. I think Bethune's your 4th linebacker right now. Nick Martin is definitely your 5th at the moment. That doesn't mean that the upward mobility isn't there. It absolutely is. He's got real speed. He just has to learn how to corral it. And you've got developmental runway because you've got other good running back, good linebackers ahead of him. And he doesn't have to be great right away for you, especially since D seems to have really taken a step over the course of this offseason. So I think the battle right now is between Gifford and Bethune for 3. With there's 4 guys here that I don't have making the roster that all have very, very redeeming qualities. And I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers carried one of these players to make it 6 linebackers on the 53, but it ends up just being a numbers game. Curtis Robinson, who was awesome last year before he tore his ACL. So we'll see where, how he progresses through that recovery now that he's back on the field. Chaz Surratt, we know that Saleh loves him, and maybe the special teams guys are really going to love him as well, coming from the New York Jets. And there's Stone Blanton, had a punch out in the 49ers' first preseason game, and then there's Jalen Graham. So this is the room that has so many new faces and so many new numbers. It was almost jarring looking at that room during OTAs. It's also the room that's going to get, just based on prior experience, the best coaching, because Robert Saleh is a linebackers guy and he's the defensive coordinator, and Johnny Holland is an unbelievable coach. So we've seen how Warner has developed. We've seen how Greenlaw's developed, and now we get to continue to see how Winters is developed, and we'll see how guys like Bethune and Nick Martin develop. And of course, we'll see how a player like Luke Gifford plays under new coaching. And, maybe he is a legit linebacker 3. I mean, he had a big hit the other day. He looked good against the Denver Broncos. So I think that there is a lot to potentially be excited about regarding Luke Gifford. All right, moving over into the secondary. I think they take 6 corners, and by that I mean outside corners and nickelbacks. Lenore's 1. Renato Green, who should be back next week, is 2. Upton Stout, let's hope that we get to see him practicing tomorrow against the Raiders. That would be a lot of fun. He's had a sore calf. He is the leader in the clubhouse to be the 49ers starting nickelback. There's been some movement over the past few days / weeks at cornerback. Trey Brown, I don't think is making this team anymore based on the rotations that I'm seeing out there. I think that the leaders in the clubhouse to be the backup outside cornerbacks are Dallas Flowers and Darrell Luter Jr. I think there's a roster spot for Saran Neal because he's like your new George Odom, except that instead of being safety, he's more of a nickelback, but he's a special teams guy. So these are your 6. I think that Trey Brown has fallen out of favor. I think that Jacob Robinson is making plays, but might be more of a practice squad candidate for the 49ers as a rookie out of BYU. And right now, I think Fabian Moreau is just giving the 49ers some depth. He's a 32-year-old corner. I do not project him sticking around the building after the cut down, at least not on the 53-man roster. A lot of people wonder about Chase Lucas. Can he force his way onto this team? Absolutely, he can. I don't think that we're at that spot yet, but he was really good on Saturday. And Chase is, with him, they're going to definitely want to keep him around. Like, if he doesn't make the 53, they want him on the practice squad. He's a scout team guy. He plays both receiver and defensive back for the scout team. He's a spark plug in the locker room. Kyle Shanahan called him the Energizer Bunny the other day, the team's Energizer Bunny. So, I mean, Chase Lucas is somebody who the 49ers are going to want to keep. I don't know how exactly they're going to do it, if it's going to be on the 53 or on the 16 practice squad, but injuries and different machinations here, or Chase Lucas just balling out over the next 2 games, may actually allow him to force his way onto the 49ers 53-man roster. So there's still a lot of preseason to go, but we'll keep an eye on that. Just know where Chase Lucas stands with this 49ers team. My second potential trade comes at the safety position. So Jason Pinnock has been taking the first team snaps, and then recently Marquise Siegel has moved next to Pinnock for first team action. Yesterday, it was very interesting to me that they gave Jair Brown some first team action. Yeah, I mean, you obviously saw it on the picture that I put up there with George Kittle. That's Jair Brown right behind him. He got beaten by George Kittle twice, although that's a really, really tough matchup for anybody. But to me, we've discussed this a lot. These 4 guys are traits-based safeties: Pinnock, Grant, Siegel, Mustafa. This guy is an anticipatory safety. We know that Robert Saleh loves traits-based safeties. Jair runs a 4.6, 4.7 40. Guy like Pinnock is 4.40. A guy like Marquise Siegel is 4.37. I mean, if I'm just looking at this surface level, I think Pinnock, Mustafa, and Siegel are the 49ers' 3 best safeties. Mustafa is not going to count against the roster at the start of the year because of the ACL tear. Grant should be back soon. So you've got to have 3 safeties between Pinnock, Grant, and Siegel definitely counting against the 53. You normally like to take 4 for depth, so maybe Jair Brown fits into that equation. But when Mustafa comes back, if that happens before the deadline and gives the 49ers enough runway time here, does San Francisco consider trading Jair Brown? Maybe to the Jets. You know who's the defensive coordinator of the Jets? Steve Wilks. You know who's up on the table, banging the table for Jair Brown, for the drafting of Jair Brown out of Penn State in 2023? Steve Wilks. So you got Sala guys and you've got Wilks guys. And I just wonder if the 49ers, once there's a glut here at safety, if they need another roster spot, if Jair Brown might be a potential trade candidate for the 49ers, since I think that the river is definitely flowing in a different direction at that safety position. Derek Canteen, listed as a corner, but can play, has been playing safety for the 49ers, rookie, and Jalen Mahoney recently re-signed. They've been filling out the depth at the position for the 49ers. Then you've got Weeks, Moody, and Morstead. I think it's fairly straightforward for San Francisco, the special team spot. So that is what the roster looks like. That I literally, over 46 minutes, have gone through every single player on the 49ers roster. It's all from memory, too. Didn't have to look at any notes. Just talked about all 90-plus guys on the 49ers roster. I say 90-plus because I talked about some guys who have been cut. And I wrote about it all here on the San Francisco Standard. Yeah, I'm a little psycho, I guess, in that way. But if you want the best 49ers coverage, then you need to subscribe. And you need to go check out you could support everything through subscribing for the Standard, and you'll get the best written coverage of the 49ers that there is as well. So it's in the description. I'm going to go ahead and put it into the comment section. I'm going to go ahead and pin it up there. Go check it out. That's the 53-man roster projection. There are going to be many maneuvers, not just on the 26th, but there are going to be many maneuvers before then that the 49ers execute because injuries are going to come. They got to get through practices. They've got to get through 2 more preseason games. So you can be sure that I'm going to be covering those in extreme detail. But as far as the projection goes, I'll say the offensive line with Colby and Drew Moss, there's been movement there. There's been movement at safety with the Marquise Siegel situation, Siegel and Pinnock and Jair Brown, obviously, I think trending downward. And there has been movement along that defensive line where Kalia Davis is announcing his intentions to start this year with his play right now. And I think that Kalia, if Kevin Givens is down, Kalia might be that veteran presence the 49ers need at defensive tackle. And then who knows? Jordan Elliott, Jair Brown, trade possibilities? We'll see. There's also a lot of upheaval in that receiving room. So it's a good, interesting year to cover the 49ers, that's for sure. Check out the 53-man roster. That is your homework. Do it now. And if you haven't done it, hit the alarm bell notification on top of that subscribe button. That is the best way you can support this psycho 49ers show. We'll see you later.